Hi, my name is Karen Altman, and I'm a Senior Admissions Consultant with Stacy Blackman Consulting. And today we're going to take you through a behind-the-scenes look at an MBA final review with the Admissions Committee. First, a little bit about me. This is my 5th season with Stacy Blackman Consulting, and I've worked with almost 100 clients up to this point from a wide variety of backgrounds, helping them with their applications to top MBA programs across the world. I have an MBA from Kellogg and a BBA from the University of Michigan. And prior to working with Stacy Blackman, I worked as an admissions officer at Kellogg, reading and evaluating essays and conducting a tremendous amount of applicant interviews. Preceding my time at Kellogg, I was a senior brand manager for Gatorade, and I co-led the MBA recruiting efforts at Kellogg for the PepsiCo Chicago office. So I've really had a foot in the MBA world for quite some time now. Prior to that, I worked in corporate finance and accounting. Today, we're going to go behind the scenes for an MBA file review to give you a much better understanding of what really happens once you submit your application. So here's the burning question. What is the Admissions Committee really looking for? From your end, you spend weeks and months agonizing over your application. You spend hours putting together your essays. You pull together your transcripts. You study really making sure those test scores are as high as possible. You gather your recommendations and your data forms. You put together your resume. You spend time prepping for your interviews. You visit campus. You agonize over your application. AdCom spends about 15 minutes. So today I'm going to take you through the application submissions from our two candidates, Serena Stout and William Wong. We will walk through their applications to Wharton. First, taking a look at the numbers. Serena has a really strong GPA, 4.0, a little bit trending down. Her undergrad is from Yale. She has a double major, BA in Economics and Environmental Studies, and she studied abroad in London. William is on a scholarship. He has a fairly low GPA to start off with, but trending up. And he went to the University of Memphis and has a BS in Computer Science on scholarship. Let's dig a little bit deeper into Serena. Are Economics and Environmental Studies good pre-MBA majors? They can be. What's more important, though, is what you do with it going forward. So overall for Serena, she does have an excellent overall GPA. It trends down slightly to a 3.6. That's really not that big of a deal. If it was trending all the way down to, let's say, a 3.1 or a 3.2, AdCom is going to want to know what happened. But for right now, it's fine. She went to an elite undergraduate institution, but there are lots of people applying from Yale. She has an interesting mix of majors, both with economics and environmental studies, and she definitely challenged herself. So far, so good for Serena. Let's look at William's numbers. How does the University of Memphis look to the Admissions Committee? That's one thing that they're going to want to consider. He has a below average overall GPA, but his GPA trends up in a really big way, achieving a 3.8 in his senior year. He's from an underrepresented undergraduate institution, and this might be appealing because B schools are looking to diversify their class. He's got a very challenging major in computer science, and he's on a scholarship, so he's definitely still in the running. How will the Admissions Committee compare Serena to William? How do they measure up against each other? So let's just break down overall GPA and where you went undergrad. Business schools are looking at a number of different factors here. They're looking at your overall GPA. They look at your year-on-year. They look at your trend. They look at a GPA from a lower-ranked school, and they also compare that against a lower GPA from a top-ranked school. The more competitive your school is deemed to be, and that may be only in the eyes of the actual admissions officer who's reading the application, the more forgiving a lower GPA might be. They're looking at the rigor of your course load in undergrad. They're looking at your quantitative grades in particular, so grades in classes like calculus, statistics, economics, accounting. They're looking at the prestige of the school as well as the major. Why? They really want to make sure that you can handle the work at your target school. Here's another big number you all are very familiar with. Here's the GMAT. Serena had one attempt at the GMAT at a 660, which was fair. She had a verbal of 80%, but she had a pretty low quant at 69%. Why wouldn't she retake this GMAT, especially given her undergraduate record? To me, as an AdCom member, this might suggest a self-awareness issue, that she doesn't think that the GMAT matters. You know what? It does. William clearly aced it. He had a 770, verbal 99%, Q, quantitative 93%, extremely strong. So what's really in a GMAT? The highest attempt is what counts, and that quantitative score is a really important indicator of business school success. Unless you're an international applicant where English language might be a difficulty, quant is much more of a focus on that GMAT score. The next component AdCom will look at is your resume. So taking a look at Serena, she has 2 years of full-time experience, and she's an investment banking analyst. Is it enough? And she's a banker. Contrasting that to William, he has 5 years of experience, but he has experience in a number of different fields. So thinking about Serena, there are slightly fewer women in investment banking, and she's got a great name on her resume. However, there are tons of investment bankers out there, and it's somewhat generic experience and is known to be somewhat light on leadership. And at this point, what happened to her environmental major? That's something that I would question. Flipping over to William, he's had some really good jobs, but he's had 3 job switches in 5 years. Why did he do this? What was the reason behind all these switches? And then within each job change, did his responsibilities grow, or did he just make lateral moves? Another thing to consider is the years of full-time experience, 2 versus 5 in this case. Which is better? Really, it's the breadth and the depth of experience. You could have amazing work experience with 1 to 2 years out, and that could be as compelling as more traditional experience at 4 to 6 years. Again, it's the breadth and the depth of experience that matters. There are also 2 analysts among many. How can they really make their experience stand out within the greater applicant pool? And that's the job of your application, your essays, to really show that you can do that. So here are the hot buttons for your resume. As I mentioned, how many years of full-time work experience matters. Even with limited experience, you'll need to demonstrate how you can uniquely add to the classroom. Quality is way more important than quantity. And the resume really needs to examine career progression and accomplishments, not just what you do on a day-to-day basis. AdCom wants to know also why you made certain career transitions. How does that tie in with your story? Your resume should highlight special projects, your leadership. AdCom generally knows what a standard investment banker does, or in any standard job, consulting, brand manager, etc. The resume should mostly be focused on your accomplishments. I personally feel, having done this for a number of years, that the resume is really the most overlooked piece on the majority of applications. Do not overlook it. At Stacy Blackman, we have a resume guide that you can download for free. Please go to our website and you can enter in the promo code GCResume. So the next area we're going to take a look at are the activities. Serena, as you can see, in college, has a ton of different activities. She's on the newspaper, she's the president of her sorority, she's a manager of her dance group, she's in the finance club, environmental club, the European club, and the running club. William only has 2. He does volunteer tutoring, and he works 40 hours a week in a retail store. Serena, she's got a really high volume of activities. Is this a good thing? Is it too many? AdCom might look, well, can she do anything really well? She seems to be spread pretty thin. The focus here seems to be on quantity over quality. For William, he doesn't have that many extracurricular involvements. Is that okay? And you know what? Sometimes it is. Sometimes you could have a lot of work experience due to financial constraints or issues, and that can really balance out lack of number of extracurricular activity. During college summers, Serena traveled with her family, and looks like green has become a real big thing here. She has an environmental community service as well as a green internship. And then we look at William. He's got more work experience in his parents' store. Did their summers prepare them for their future careers? And does it really matter? As long as it ties into your story, it definitely matters. Post-college, Serena, again, a ton of different activities. The marathon, the environmental support group, the Board of New York Cares, the board for the ballet, and she's the class rep for her Yale fundraising. She still has somewhat of a broad activity base, but she definitely has some nice leadership, and she gets points for giving back to her alma mater. When we look at William, again, he has a smaller, but honestly more meaty angle for his extracurriculars. He created an online finance job search for the University of Memphis students, and he launched and rolled out tech enrichment programs for low-income high schools. As I said, he's got really good, solid involvement. He shows that he gives back to his school, and he demonstrates leadership and entrepreneurial potential. I'm interested to see how that's going to play out in the rest of his application. So in summary, there's that question out there, does Serena have too many activities? But she has this consistent interest in green causes, and I would look to see how this plays out in the rest of her application. She has a track record of leadership roles, which is a big positive, and she gave back to her alma mater. William, on the other hand, his full-time work clearly was very time-consuming along with attending college full-time, and he had very limited activities. However, with the small amount of time he did have, he developed a track record of helping others. His mentoring and the programs that he developed really are starting to tell a nice story. He created his own opportunities, and he gave back to his alma mater. So here's the bottom line. Everything counts, even how you spend your free time. And impact and quality is most important. Activities are really a great opportunity to demonstrate leadership, which is very important in some work roles, such as investment banking analysts, like both William and Serena are, which are traditionally very light on leadership. You hear a lot of talk about being well-rounded. B schools are not necessarily looking for well-rounded individuals. They are looking to make up a well-rounded class, and within that well-rounded class, they are looking for a group of specialists. And so you want to take a look at who are you and what kind of specialist are you going to be. So the big component that everyone spends the most amount of time on clearly are the essays. So for her career goals, Serena wrote in her essays that she wants to continue in finance and eventually launch a private equity firm. As we say here, yeah, her and 10,000 other applicants. It's not very differentiated, or is it very unique? William, on the other hand, wants to launch a game-changing educational software company. Interesting goal, but very, very lofty. If you're going to have a goal that is like this, very differentiated, you need to make sure you have a clear plan to back this up, both in your essays and in your interviews, to make sure that it's achievable. Overall, most admissions committees want to make sure you have a clear and achievable plan. They don't want to worry about a placement risk. Again, looking at the essays, in the Why Wharton area, Serena writes that she wants a solid finance education, she's interested in the flexible curriculum, networking within her class, and forming bonds with her section mates. Oops, big oops here. This is way too general. You know you're being way too general if you could substitute the name of any other school for Wharton in here, and it would work very well, which she could. William, on the other hand, he wrote that he's excited about Wharton's entrepreneurial programs. He discusses the Small Business Development Center as well as the Venture Initiation Program. This is great specific detail. It really goes directly to his entrepreneurial background and to his goals. It makes total sense. So here's some other themes on the essays. Serena writes about her travel experiences, her marathons, her diverse community service, some stories from work. There's really not a cohesive theme that we've seen throughout any of Serena's work to date. What happened to her environmental bet? I'm really surprised it hasn't come up here, and that's something I would imagine she would be interested in. William writes about his unique family background, his national track and field competitions in high school, and his mentoring experiences. So the unique family background ties very nicely into his story, especially the need to work so much during the summers and during school. High school, on the other hand, is very, very far back, and unless it's something over and above, or unless the essay specifically asks you to go back, way back to talk about something, high school is usually not a place you want to talk about. But he did also mention his mentoring experiences, which we've seen throughout, that's strong as well. So as we mentioned, what's missing from Serena's essays? As I said, very general and generic. There's not really a cohesive theme. And what happened to the green? So here are the basics on the essays and how AdCom looks at essays. Is business school needed to achieve your career goals? If you could make a direct move into the career you want to enter into without an MBA, why wouldn't you do so? You want to make sure that why you need an MBA is very clear. Did you do your homework on a particular school? In this case, Wharton. They're looking for mentioning specific classes, professors, clubs, conferences, students you met, alums you've met. They want to make sure you can do your research, and you can't just generically substitute a name of another program in. And do we learn anything new about the applicants from their essays? The essays are really all about how you brand yourself. We have our branding guide that you can download for free on our homepage at stacyblackman.com. One, I think, of the most differentiating factors as an admissions consulting firm that we have is how Stacy Blackman helps tell your story, which is extremely important for applications. And to do this, we start off with having you fill out a brag sheet, which really gives us a good sense of you, your background, your accomplishments, and your goals. And then we work to develop your story from there. And so if you'd like a copy of our brag sheet, please feel free to email us at gmatclub@stacyblackman.com, and we'd be happy to give you one. So on to the recommendations. Who loves you? Serena. Serena has letters from her current boss, who said that Serena is one of her best analysts ever. She has a recommendation from a college professor who talks about her exceptional quantitative abilities. She has a recommendation from a nonprofit, where it's an excellent recommendation as well, discussing her contributions, along with 2 additional letters from Wharton alums who discussed points on Serena's resume. William, on the other hand, has 2 letters. They're both from the same job. One is from the head of his PE firm, positive recommendation, but a little bit generic, and the current boss at his PE firm, very strong, discussing his abilities, personality, and really adding a great deal of insight into William. So let's dig a little deeper here. Serena's letter from her professor. Is this helpful? Not really. Business schools, unlike law schools, are looking for professional recommendations from people who have been in a position to evaluate you and your accomplishments. Many law school applications specifically want an academic reference. Business schools do not. It really doesn't fit the bill for business schools. Serena's letters from alum. Is this good or bad, and how much is too much? It really depends on the school. Sometimes schools like this, but you have to be very, very careful this doesn't become overkill. There's a very fine line between being informative or being annoying, and clearly you want to fall on the informative side. So looking at William's letters, he has 2 letters from the same job. Is this okay? This is a big yes, but. If you've only had 1 job post-college, then yes, it completely makes sense. However, William has had 3 separate jobs at 3 different firms. It really makes me wonder as an admissions officer why he hasn't included anything from a prior employer. Was there a problem here? Is there no one else other than his current employer who can speak positively to his efforts? To me, that's a bit of a red flag. So, overall, recommendations for recommendations. You want to make sure your recommender knows you and can add meaningful insight. Familiarity always trumps prestige. You don't want to submit extra letters unless they're really truly helpful and that you supply an additional point of view. To just reiterate what your other 2 recommendations have already said, that's not helpful, and again, starts to cross that line to annoying. Letters from current and recent supervisors are very important. In fact, if you take a look, many business schools actually require this. Academic letters, as we talked about, are generally not useful. And overall, it helps for the recommenders to give concrete examples to really back up their claims, and absolutely avoid writing it yourself. And manage this overall process carefully. Help your recommenders along. At Stacy Blackman, we actually have a template that we have clients fill out that helps inform their recommenders and makes it easier for them to write the actual recommendation. If you'd like this, please email us for a copy of our template at gmatclub@stacyblackman.com. So let's move on to timing. Serena is applying into round 1. Is she applying with the most competitive group? William's applying in round 2. Is he applying too late? So here's the general consensus. You need to apply in a round that you will be the best prepared. If you are 100% ready for round 1, then absolutely submit. You should never, though, rush a round 1 application if just even a few more weeks of work on it would improve it greatly. And then here's a little bit of personal information about both of them to wrap things up. Serena was born in New York. She's Caucasian. Her father went to Stanford undergrad and has an MBA from Stanford. And her mother has a Wharton MBA, so she's definitely a legacy. Her parents have contributed about $75,000 over the last 3 years to Wharton. These schools do see a lot of money and a lot of donations, and it's definitely usually not an automatic in. But it is helpful that her parents are MBAs and that she is a legacy. She'll certainly get a little bit of a finer look because of it. William, he grew up in San Francisco. He's Chinese, and his parents immigrated from China. His father has a college degree in China, and his mother didn't attend college. So for William, it's actually even more impressive because he's first generation in the U.S., and look how well he's done to date. So what happened? Serena was waitlisted for Wharton round 1, but she stepped back, applied to Stanford for round 2, and she was admitted. And the reason she was admitted to Stanford is she stepped back and approached her Stanford application much differently. She did her research on Stanford. She knew the classes, the professors, the conferences that she wanted to attend. She took her GRE. She wasn't able to get her GMAT up, so she took her GRE and submitted that higher score. And she took the time to develop her real story about her environmental interest versus the story before that she thought AdCom wanted to hear. AdCom can tell that. She took the time to do it right rather than rushing for round one, which we talked about, and she submitted only serious value-added recommendations, not 5 different recommendations from across the board. And she pared down her activities that she discussed to only a very few that directly supported her story of moving into the environmental field. She showed self-awareness through describing her interest and her desired career change into this field. What happened with William? William was admitted to Wharton. As we talked about all the way through, he did his research on Wharton. He successfully tied together his interests in finance, technology, entrepreneurship, education, and mentoring. He showed a track record, all of which demonstrated a great deal of sincerity. Clearly, he rocked the GMAT. Having that GMAT score only helped him. He improved his grades over time, and he had a personal background that really helped AdCom understand the whys behind all of his different actions. And he definitely got points for overcoming a more challenging family background. I hope this provided some helpful advice and knowledge on how AdCom evaluates applications. For more information, please visit our website at stacyblackman.com and let us know if there is any way that we can help you. We do offer free 30-minute consultations with one of our principals who can help get you started on the right path. And again, on our website, as you can see, we have a number of different things available from our branding guide to our resume guide. And you can also email us for a copy of our recommender template and brag sheet that I mentioned. And lastly, take a look at Stacy's blog for tips, videos, and cutting-edge news daily. Good luck with your applications.